she is.
She's hiding behind the town clerk label.
Oh,
It
okay.
shows up as town clerk on Zoom, yeah.
All right, well, it's 6:31. Let's call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Bo and I were just discussing those. I think we had an accident with 9B that can be taken out. B, boy. And we don't need to have guardrail on there twice. We have guardrail, we don't have guardrail on the agenda twice, so we'll leave that as is. Correct, Bo? Is there anything else you saw that needed to be fixed about the agenda?
No, that was it. I have guardrail under 6C and then again and under discussion. So I don't know if you want to use.
Oh yeah, let's take it off of discussion. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
All right. So yeah. Those would be my motion for changes and corrections to the agenda. Are there any others, or is there a second?
Lamar, this is Rocco. I'd like to add in a discussion item before your parting comment. I have
Okay,
a comment.
okay.
So with yours, I guess we got rid of 9A and B, your 9C. So I'd like to add comments prior to your discussion item.
Okay, so Rocco can be discussion item A and I'll be parting comments B. How's that? Does that work, Bo?
Perfectly.
Okay.
I move to approve the agenda with the corrections.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Let's look at our meeting minutes from our last meeting. You need a minute to read over them. Are we ready for a motion? Any corrections on these? Bo, did you have a correction on it? It sounded like you found
I
something.
The correction is highlighted under number 1. And here at Town Hall during that meeting, we had Commissioner Esch and Commissioner Bonwell present, and the rest of the commissioners were present on Zoom.
Okay. So you'll fix that, okay. Was there anything else, Bo, that you noticed?
That was all that I noticed. Thank you, Commissioner Esch, for spotting that.
Any other corrections, commissioners? Just make a motion when you're ready, Commissioner. Any changes? Bo, have we lost sound?
We just have some of that unusual static that happens from time to time, but I can hear you well, and I think we're still connected on mics.
Okay, well, if anybody's making a motion, I'm not hearing it about the minutes.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. This is Ann.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes. All right, do we have any public input this evening, Bo?
I don't have any from town hall here. Anyone on Zoom for public input? Not seeing any.
Okay. All right. Julia, thank you for joining us this evening. Do you have any reports for us?
Good evening, Commissioners. I do have several updates to close out 2023, and in just a second, Bo, I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully we have a seamless experience with that. So of my updates, I have the first on the list is the zoning map, which we very much need to implement our new land use code. That is a fully executed contract with a mapping company. So that's good news because procurements can sometimes be a challenge. Once we have a final product, we can move forward with that zoning ordinance. That's a pretty heavy lift and will be a lot of work for the commission and the Board of Trustees. We would love to see that first quarter. And since I can't see anything right now, just Chair, you'll holler if I'm missing something. I'm going to share now.
Julia,
Okay, cool.
so the group Safe Built is that's the vendor who's going to be doing the maps, is that correct?
Correct.
And was that budgeted in the 2024 budget, do you know?
I believe the town manager and the town clerk are on this meeting right now.
The town manager does not come to our meetings, but the town clerk is on the meeting.
Okay.
We're both here.
Hi, yes, that item was budgeted for in
Oh,
2020.
hi, Becky. I didn't see you. Wonderful, thank you. Go ahead, Julia.
So yes, Safe Built, and we're going to get that going in the first quarter. The second item, all of our applications have been revamped with a revamp. This has been an iterative process to get this to a place that is easier, that has links with further instructions and some graphics. So I'm spinning through it really fast. This is a checklist for a major site plan, and it actually still has notes in it. So this also has graphics to help the applicant and user on the website. And then the hope is to more easily use what the information that we have. So that is that item. Oh, and my screen sharing is not happening anymore. My apologies, everyone. To go along with our new code and our development permits, we had to revise our erosion control and stormwater management application, the review for that and the checklist. The code allows for a lot greater flexibility, giving us the ability to implement best management practices, which is important when you're talking about erosion control. Of course, protect our slopes and our roads that are vulnerable, and naturally our waterways. So this required a contract with an on-call engineer and the procurement process. At our last trustees meeting, we had that approved. So we have an executed contract to work with Kiowa. This is the start of our checklist. I'm working with an engineer to get that fully refined, and I will bring that to the commission just for informational purposes. So that's going to be our checklist for the engineer. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so that was on-call engineering. As we discussed last month when I presented the staff report, the Planning Commission is very interested in seeing what permits have been approved administratively. We heard the notion and discussed the concept of a project dashboard to see what applications have been received by town clerk and are underway for review. There was also another notion about it was a compliance, an attempt to improve compliance and transparency. Commissioner Esch asked if we could consider putting, when a permit is granted, having a plaque or a posted note to go so that it's well known that the person or their contractor has GMS and or PPRBD approval. I have conveyed these ideas, and the clerk and the town manager and I have discussed them. We all agree transparency is key. So in the new year, when we revisit our annual training, which includes roles, responsibilities, the board is going to help the town manager create policy speaking directly to this. What goes in a packet, what information comes forward. And Becky, if you have anything to add to that, I'm happy to include it.
Nothing to add at this point. Thanks,
Okay.
Julia.
So that's where we are. So coming into January, new year, and we'll have some new policies.
So as I understand it, Becky, town manager, staff will receive training and they will create the new policies and procedures. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, maybe I didn't make that clear. So as we start in the new year and we have this training, we have an annual CIRSA, and it may also be DOLA. I'm not entirely clear on whether both entities are going to be there. Talk about how we're going to move forward. And then also, so the Board of Trustees is going to create or help the town manager who manages staff create a policy for what will be included in a meeting, in a packet, on an agenda.
So after receiving training from CIRSA and DOLA, BOT will be responsible for helping Becky create policies for what's going to be included in Planning Commission packets. Is that accurate?
I guess it might happen in conjunction with the training, Becky. I guess if you're talking about an order of operations, I'm unclear, but in January, we will have new policies.
So yeah, if I can help to provide a little bit of additional clarification, what Julia is referring to is the document that you all received as an invitation to the all boards training on January 30th. And that will contain, we'll make sure to go over roles and responsibilities. In addition to that, based on some guidance that Bo received at a previous training, make sure that everybody's familiar with all of our meeting templates, as well as other things. If there are particular topics that anybody is interested in learning more about, we can certainly include elements of those into those training materials. We are still developing what that is looking like, so we are seeking input. I think that was also communicated in the email that went out. So if there are things that you're struggling with as a board member, would love to be able to help support you with that. And as part of that training also, we will be going over, again, those roles and responsibilities. I think a lot of that info was included in that invitation.
Okay, so I think for Planning Commission, the two main questions we have that we'd like to see covered in training is, can we have the addresses? And so that's number one. And the second thing we'd like to know is, can we publicly post on a property, as Ann Esch recommended, to let everyone know that there's an application in process at that location? Those are our two questions. Would those be covered in training?
Thanks. We can make sure to include those.
Okay, thank you. And as a result of those two questions, there'll be new policies and procedures, or there's just gonna be new policies and procedures, period?
I think that the policies and procedures as far as operationally, how that will go, it will include guidance on those questions. So I think that that's part of this implementation of the new land use code, is that it does cause us to examine how we're administering it. And those policies are really intended to direct the administration of that.
And these will be policies and procedures for planning commission, for staff, for everybody. What will be the scope of the policies and procedures?
It's intended to be inclusive for everybody who is handling applications.
Okay, all right. And I heard you mention, Julia, a heavy lift for planning commission. Can you give us a little more color on what's going to be required? That's a heavy lift for planning commission.
So when I used that phrase, I was referring to our zoning maps and our zoning ordinance, which is important to implement the new land use code. And I will add that the bulk of the lift was when you developed and approved the code, but a part of that is to make sure that we carry that through in a zoning map. And that's an ordinance that's very important.
So will planning commission be responsible for writing that ordinance?
An ordinance like that will be mostly boilerplate because it's an ordinance for zoning. So, but the town attorney will, of course, have a lot to do with that because of the weight that's carried with a zoning ordinance.
So is this, and what interaction will the planning commission have on the zoning maps? What will be their part in that?
So my vision, and Becky, please chime in if you have anything. My vision is that we get this draft product from the contractor and bring that forward. Because we have a couple iterations of old zoning maps, and whether or not they had an ordinance, I think needs to be, I would like to bring a draft product to the planning commission and make sure that we're all on the same page. And then, of course, the final ordinance would be the actual language that would come before you first, before the Board of Trustees, I am fairly certain, and the mapping. I'm almost positive that our code includes how a zoning ordinance is done.
Okay,
And I can follow up with that either in an email or actually an email would, or in the January meeting.
commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I'd like to ask, this is the company that's going to start working on this, right? And so it's just starting really to implement from the code that's passed. And it's gonna, I don't know how long that takes. Takes a while, probably.
So Safe Built does have an executed contract and they are working on that right now.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah.
I think that one of the factors with this particular zoning map update is that really a majority of the changes that you're going to see to that map is going to be the renaming of the districts. I think for the most part, those districts are going to remain the same. It's just with the new land use code update, many of the district names had changed, and you might recall that from that
Yeah.
update. So I think that they've got a pretty solid base to work from. It's, but I do think that we'd probably like to explore the opportunity to update the look of the zoning map to ensure that it has really good readability and, excuse me, that it is going to be compliant with our website.
Mhm. But as commissioners from this body, we don't approve it, do we?
I think that we probably need to reach out to Austin from our legal team. He helped
And
with
we
the,
just- but we
and,
can
and
always look
have
at
him
it.
give us just an overview of what the process can look like and what the steps
Sure.
are going to be.
Very good. Thank you.
Other questions, commissioners?
Yeah, Lamar, this is Rocco. So we've been asking for the addresses on the planners list, I think since September. My question is, at the CIRSA training, are we going to have a definitive answer on whether or not the addresses get included? I think we've kind of waited long enough for an answer. So are we going to have an answer in January?
The board meeting in January is scheduled for January the 9th. The CIRSA training will not occur until after that. I would like the board to be able to have all of that information prior to drafting a policy. So it will likely occur at the February meeting if it ends up being a policy that the board needs to adopt.
All right, so now you're saying February? That we'll know the answer on whether or not we can have addresses like we've asked for?
That's my hope.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, Julia, you probably have more. I just wanted to stop to get clarification on what you've told us so far. Please proceed.
I believe those 4 items that I covered, update us completely. I guess the only thing left to say is that in January, depending on the site plans that we receive that I receive in revision, and depending on engineering review, how prompt that is, we should have for sure 2 development review plan for review, for sure 2, if not 3. Coming up in January for the new year.
Okay, good. Thanks for letting us know that, so we know how to plan. Anything else, Julia, that you need us to know?
I don't have anything, but if the commissioners need any information, I'm happy to send that out with an additional email. Let me clarify. I will make sure to check up on what the zoning ordinance procedure is, both with the code and with Austin for further information.
And are you just gonna send that out once you have it?
In January, when we talk about business moving forward, I'll include the procedure in, how about a staff memo with the procedure for the zoning ordinance, and then also a status on where Safe Built is, what their proposed deliverable date is. Give us a little more clarity.
That would be great to get both of those. Thank you, Julia.
And that, for one more thing, I just want to make sure that before I sign off, that I know that the planning commission meeting will be on the 16th, town clerk.
Well, if we're the second Tuesday, that would be the 9th. Bo, what do you show?
Yeah, so the way holidays fell and the way the town of Green Mountain Falls observes the holidays.
Oh, we can't hear you on Zoom.
Interesting.
Hey, Bo, it's just a little bit muffled. I can hear your words, but they're challenging to.
Oh, gotcha. Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, so with the way the holidays fell on the days of the week and the way that the town of Green Mountain Falls observes the holidays, we moved BOT to the 9th. And I think we're gonna have to revisit schedules all the way across the board. Becky and I we projected out in the year if that was gonna be regular. And it is gonna be a regular issue with some other stuff on the calendar. So I'll have to get back with you on that, maybe put our heads together and work on that schedule.
So do you think it'll be the 16th or you don't know?
BOT is definitely on January 9th.
But what about planning commission? Can they plan on the 16th, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I'm afraid to fully commit because I'm not looking at my calendar and I'd hate to have a surprise, but I'd be happy to email you here shortly after the meeting or confirm with you tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners, anything else for Julia before she leaves? Julia, thank you. We appreciate your work.
Merry Christmas, Julia.
Thank you, and Commissioner Esch, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. All right, so as we go on to old business number 6, 6A, the zoning map, I think we've kind of covered that with Julia's update that she provided regarding that. Is there any other discussions or questions on that?
I thought that was well covered. I don't have anything to add to that.
Commissioners, anything? The next thing in old business is the staging policy update. I believe that Bo has included that in our packet.
I did, yeah, I have that right here. So you guys approved this at a past meeting, I think it was September 10th. At the very following meeting that BOT had, this was not approved. The reason it wasn't approved was only a couple of spots. BOT sent it back to staff and asked us to, refer to legal and come up with something and revisit it. So it's with legal now. I highlighted the spots. I think I got them all, but it seemed that they felt this was too strong a language and might deter bidding on town projects. So softening up some language, but overall, it was well received. They really liked this table. I remember unanimous approval of this part of it. And the idea of using this as guidance on where to stage and just not using Olathe all the time. So in concept, I think we're really close. Legal had the good idea, maybe it was Becky, but we can incorporate something that we have currently in use, which is a temporary use permit, conditional use permit, and include that in this framework. So that's where that's at now. And we have a lot of stuff going on with legal. And this needs to be kickstarted. So I haven't checked with them specifically on this in some time, and I'm happy to do that soon.
Bo, I'd like to recommend that we keep the old business list going until it's completely resolved, and that way things don't fall through the cracks, so that we keep 6A, we keep 6B until it's completely resolved. Is that something that the commissioners would also like to see?
Yeah, this is Mike. I have a question on this staging policy. On the top of the second page, it says property owners have 15 days from receipt of notice to appeal. Does that mean we're going to let property owners deny us the opportunity to stage at a particular place? Are we going to say, okay, if somebody resists that, we'll have to go somewhere else?
Yeah, some of those specifics we have to look hard at. The way we notice, there's some variances to how we notice right now, like 150 feet is elsewhere in our code for notification. And so like, should we bring that and have uniformity there? Or should we leave this at 200 and have other things with a 150-foot kind of a radius for notification? So those are good questions, and I think,
But we're going to let a citizen veto our use of a particular space?
well, this still has to go back to BOT, and that,
Okay.
the stuff that's highlighted is the stuff that we need to look at. So
Okay.
where you see red on here, that is very much the stuff that we're looking at.
I can imagine we wouldn't have any place to put anything if we just let the citizens veto.
So it's not a veto. They can appeal. They can question the decision.
They can appeal, but can they shut it down? If we want to use,
It doesn't say veto. It says they can appeal. They can ask for another look. That doesn't mean it's going to get overturned.
okay,
Yeah, so right now we have a similar policy for SDRs, and we post that, hey, there's gonna be a new SDR over here, and everyone within 150 feet is notified. And then they can inform the town manager in writing within 15 days, you know, of why they object to that or why they approve of that. And we consider it, we look at our code and see if that's an actionable objection and, you know, go from there. So I imagine it'll be something similar.
by the
Yeah.
way, since Woodland Park vetoed STRs, we might ought to increase our limit. We're going to have some pressure down here.
Mike, did you say that's in the second paragraph? I didn't.
This first paragraph on the second page. It's that red print up on the top of
Oh,
the
up
second
there.
page.
I didn't even realize that. Well, I do know that, appeals delay progress. That's the only, if there's something that needs to be done, you have to kind of do it quick, I guess. Get it settled.
So
Yeah,
what,
it'll add a bit of time, but hopefully, you know, for the kinds of projects that we're working on here, there'll be, you know, we'll be working on this stuff with ample time ahead of breaking ground. So I'm hoping
Yeah,
that doesn't hang
that's
us up
good.
too much.
Well, if you look at the current staging on Olathe, that was fast tracked. It was supposed to be done. They've exceeded where they were supposed to stage. Have you noticed the big pile of rocks across the street?
Oh, I wondered what those.
So
they
they're not
part-
following anything. So we have a need for something, right? And if this slows it down and it gets it done right, I think that beats the alternative, what we're seeing
Oh,
on
I-
Olathe and across the street right now.
Well, I would agree in a lot of circumstances, but I would say that as far as the pump station was concerned, that's a utility that you need. That's all I have to say. It was a mess. I'll have to agree with you, but it's needed. So,
Bo, can we keep this running list of old business? Staging policy kind of fell off the radar and has been almost dormant for 3 months with in legals. So I think it's helpful to have it listed under old business. Is that something we can do?
I'd be happy to keep that on there in the future.
Thank you. Next, let's go to C, guardrail options. Did you have something in the packet about that?
I didn't have anything in here on that. I wasn't sure if you know, if Phil had anything else from, was it NTech?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I didn't know if he had another bundle from them or not, but I don't have anything included in the packet.
Phil was gonna be here tonight, but he had a family celebration that he needed to attend. I want to encourage planning commission to continue to use Phil as an engineer for his engineering expertise to be helpful. And again, so it doesn't fall through the cracks, it'd be a good idea just to keep it on old business, just to check in on it and what's happening with it. Stilling basin maintenance is another question that I have. Bo or Becky, do you know what the plan is for maintenance for the Stilling Basin? And is this something PRT? I think Jesse has joined us, so he may want to comment on that, but is that something PRT is going to be following, or how is the maintenance going to take place with the Stilling Basin?
In regards to routine maintenance that the Stilling Basin will require, that'll just be part of Public Works' routine activities. That's generally just cleaning up and emptying the basin as it fills with sediment. And I will defer to Jesse, as I know that the PRT's been really busy working towards some concepts for consideration at that space.
Jesse, I don't know if you can hear us, if you want to comment on that.
I can hear you, and just to say that we have a community engagement forum scheduled for January the 31st, where we will look at beautification improvements to the site, but we are not taking on any kind of responsibility regarding maintenance, and we'll defer to town staff to make sure that we don't put anything that would be in the way of maintenance. So that's sort of where we're at on the subject.
Okay, thank you. Becky, is Public Works currently doing monthly maintenance on the Stilling Basin?
The maintenance required on the Stilling Basin is really weather and storm dependent, so they do check it, particularly when they know that there's going to be a large storm. This really ended up being very beneficial. They'd cleaned it out just before the huge storm event that we had in June. It was kind of their test run in cleaning it out. It went pretty successful. They definitely learned a lot about it. We ended up getting one of the pieces of equipment stuck very briefly. But they did clean it out, and that made sure that it had adequate volume to take the surge of that storm prior to it entering the lake. We're certain that we were able to get a good idea of how much sediment didn't make it to the lake and know that it is working. So that was really, really good, but it is going to require routine maintenance, cleaning out as storm events occur. So that's really going to vary year to year and season to season.
And who makes the decision that it needs to be done?
It's regularly monitored
By Public Works?
by Public Works.
That's probably something that that's up to the commissioners if they want to keep that on the old business list, or if we can drop that.
Mars, it's Lisa. I think we can drop it.
Lisa, I can't hear you.
She says, she thinks we can drop it, and I would agree.
Okay, let's plan to have that, Bo, on the old business list. Okay, fee schedule update. Bo has included that in our packet. Where
Sorry,
does,
on the fee schedule, I jumped up for a second.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I had a lot of help with this. This commission spent time on the fee schedule. The town planner spent considerable time on this. Public Works, Public Safety. I learned a lot doing this. So this has been approved by the BOT in the last meeting. So this thing is posted, published, and in use, well, almost in use. It kicks in 24, but it was a confluence of your input and the BOT's input on the land use part. We kind of tried to balance that input, and this is what we came up with. The huge change in this fee schedule versus past ones is law enforcement. So over here, you'll see model traffic code references. And the big thing that I learned is we really can't charge fees that haven't been, adopted under a fee schedule and posted. And that was eye-opening, how many areas we were just missing out on revenue. So I think this is going to be really good. I think we found a good balance between, our costs and expenses here in administration and the cost to the public.
So there's nothing further needed from the planning commission.
No, it's all, this is set. Yeah, it's all done.
Good
Well,
job.
can we look at the zoning and architectural review section,
Sure thing.
please?
And I should note here that this can be amended and updated at any time. So we're not stuck with anything for a year. If there's something glaring, let me know and we'll see what we can do.
Is that up to planning commission to suggest changes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to receiving ideas from anywhere.
So this is Lisa. We can't change law enforcement fees, can we? No. Okay, so zoom on past that. Okay, I'm trying to, thank you.
I'm flipping through this pretty fast, Bo. I assume there's some sort of fee or fine for people parking where they're not supposed to park. I'm just not seeing it.
Oh, that's a whole thing. That's all happening with legal right now too. That's definitely in here somewhere. I have projected here the land use part of it.
And that's fine, because that's what Rocco asked to see, but I'm not seeing parking violations. Oh, here, just found it.
Parking violations.
Yeah, I found it.
What page is it?
There's not page numbers on this, but
Well, there are in our packet. That's 11. This is 10.
Could be the,
13, I think it may be 12.
it's in the law enforcement thing.
9, it looks like 9 maybe. Yeah, page 9 on our packet. Sort of in the middle.
Parking violation at the bottom, $100. And this is weird. On page 11 at the very top, fireworks sales license. You can get a license and we sell fireworks in our state, in our town. That's bizarre.
It is bizarre that I paused at that too. That has actually been on the
Holy
fee schedule as far back as I
cow.
can find them. And a lot of this stuff is actually statutory. There's a
Right.
license out there that you can do it. We don't have to issue it. So
Oh, okay.
that there is discretion there.
I
but-
thought, I thought you had to go to Wyoming or somewhere else to buy fireworks. I didn't know it was legal in the state. It is? Oh, that is just. Okay, never
So
mind.
if we were gonna issue, that
Okay.
kind of
Yeah, yeah.
perimeter license, that would be the statutory fee. So
Wow.
a lot of the fees on here were statutory too, all the liquor enforcement stuff and so a lot of this model traffic code stuff was too, where you see summons, that's all statutory.
Okay.
So-
And then underneath dog license fee, we're going to go into a 2-year instead of a 1 year.
Yeah,
Nice.
we were trying to figure out how to have better participation
Right,
in that. And one idea was to make it more low maintenance for
Yeah,
the user.
for everybody.
And have it kind of be concurrent with your rabies vaccination.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, but it, technically the fee didn't go up. It did double, but then it's a 2-year license.
And then
instead of
a horse permit, even though horses are not allowed.
They, in theory, could be if all the parameters are set.
If you had
know,
the 10,000 square feet and all that.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah,
remember.
so-
Okay,
Without determining every lot in town, I just left it in there and,
okay.
if it comes up, well, that's
It's
what it
cheaper
is.
than a dog.
Rocco, did you have some questions on the section you wanted to look at?
No, I'll look at the website and just compare it to the draft that we had.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, commissioners?
I have one on page 11. You go on down zoning amendment, $500. Who's going to amend the zoning? Would that be
If there was a zoning amendment needed, it would trigger the.
for like a subdivision or whatever?
Right,
And then
and it
people,
would,
okay,
it would really trigger the update of the zoning map again.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Anything else, anybody? Okay, let's go into number 7, new business, sort of planning for 2024. Julia provided some more color on that than I had on my list. So, we know, that Planning Commission will be working on zoning maps and zoning ordinances, with the assistance of a Safe Built and, the attorney, Austin. That's one thing that will be on your plate. I think we've covered the topic about addresses. It's our understanding that it's going to be addressed in training, and staff, town manager, and BOT will be addressing that question along with Anish's question that is the next one on the list. In that a lot of times we don't know if we need to turn a neighbor in who's doing illegal work, or if they've put in their fee in their application and they're just all kosher. So,
Can I amend or add something to that? Can we
sure.
also have a posting until the project is complete? So not just while the application is in progress, but when we see somebody working on a house, how do we know if they've even submitted an application?
Yeah, so in my past experience, usually what has happened with those building permits is that once they're issued, and of course Pikes Peak Regional doesn't issue a building permit without it going through planning and zoning. Those approvals occur concurrently. So usually what happens is that they give the building owner or the project manager a permit, and I need to ask them if that's what they do here as well. And then it's usually, from past experience, again, it was intended to be posted in clear view on that project. And so in that way, you're able to tell immediately if, that has been done. So part of it's just a little bit of education for us of what does that process look like? What occurs once a permit is issued? And is the intent that that contractor or homeowner place that within the work site?
Well, and I think, Becky, that's the question. We know Pikes Peak issues that, and hopefully it's being displayed. But in a situation where it's Pikes Peak maybe isn't involved and it's only Green Mountain Falls, would we be issuing some kind of notification that is clearly seen by everybody, whether, if it's just a deck or something like that?
And I think it's not a bad idea. I'd like to kind of experience a situation where that's needed, where there's a planning or zoning permit that has been issued that does not also include a building permit.
But it's still something that can be addressed, as we previously said, with the training and the policies and procedures? Or are you saying that you need planning commission to pull out some examples for you?
It would be great to have some of those scenarios for when a zoning permit or a planning application would require something like that. I mean, the planning side of it here in town is quite easily, if a complaint's made, we look into it, we're able to look in the system and see if there's been a permit that was pulled or an application that's in process. That's really quite easy for us as staff to manage.
That's what we've been doing in the past. Ann's suggestion was that it relieves neighbors from having to call town hall and rat out their neighbor, and maybe several people are doing it. And if it was just posted, it'd be easy for everyone to see. And it also encourages everybody to sort of follow the rules. Bo, you would probably have plenty of examples to show her regarding decks or fences that are just approved by the town. Pikes Peak has nothing to do with it. Would you be able to provide those to Becky?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding from the previous meeting when this came up is you guys are kind of looking for like a live permit flag, like something that can be easily observed from the road or, you know, public ground that indicates that there is an approved permit at that address. And we all thought it was a good idea, and I don't think it'll be hard to, you know, implement that or include that. It is a bit of a two-step thing because some permits are just issued through PPRBD and some are just issued through here. So we need to, you know, kind of make sure nothing falls through the cracks that way. I think that's the hardest part.
So I guess before we leave the topic, can we understand, yes, Lisa?
Well, then can you correct that statement, Bo? This is like, have the documentation on the properties while the application is taking place. We want to know, I mean, an application, there's nothing going on. And then you see things going on. Yeah, so while the work is taking place, after the application is approved, that would be, isn't that your intent, Ann? Not that we know,
Yeah.
not that we post it while there's an application being made.
I guess that's what,
Yeah. So if you could correct that, I think that's
I
how we're all
don't-
talking about it.
I agree
Could
with you. I
you-
think we're all, in the-
Could you clarify, please?
I'd be
Yeah.
happy to.
Thank you.
Also, speaking of that, you know, when there is work by somebody that's doing it, they have to get a license from the town to do the work if they're a company. And do they put a sign on the property too?
There's not currently a requirement for that.
Some places do that. You know,
Like an
this-
advertisement for their
It
company.
it is, or, you know, this is work by this company and I don't know if you have to require that or if anybody wants to, but the people can check them out and personally, if they know who's doing the work and say, I wonder if this is a good company. And I don't know how you want to work it, but so however you think and the trustees think it would be reasonable to do something like that, I just thought it might be helpful, however you decide.
Yeah, I think adding
with the-
legitimacy to, you know, those live permits and, you know, demonstrating that to,
It's educational too, you know, so a lot of people don't know they're supposed to get a permit.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So can we have a better understanding of sort of what the roadmap's gonna be for this, for the town of Green Mountain Falls and the permits that just we issue, and then y'all can also simultaneously work on Pikes Peak Regional and understand what they're issuing to people and if they're requiring it to be posted. I typically don't see things posted very often. So is all that going to be encompassed in this training, BOT and town manager writing policies and procedures? Will all that be encompassed?
I think this is something that we can address just through an informational memo once we receive the information that we're seeking.
So the informational memo will come to Planning Commission, is that correct?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So, Bo, we probably need to put that under old business just so we can continue to follow it. Along with
Sure.
along with the addresses that, those 2 points that Becky told us would be addressed. With the Sursa and DOLA training and then with BOT and town manager. Just until we get that back. Okay, Becky, I believe, had sent this out, maybe both sent it, to remind everybody that you're gonna need to elect officers at your first January meeting. In speaking to, all the commissioners that I've spoken to individually, no one has expressed an interest in being chair. Lisa has expressed an interest, a willingness, I should say, to serve again as co-chair. So that will be job one in January. Next on the list,
Lamar, I'm going to say vice chair, not co.
okay,
I'm going to dial
Sorry.
it back a little.
yeah.
Thank you.
understand. Sure. So we need, it's been expressed by commissioners that they really need clear direction on the responsibilities and tasks required of PC in the future if we're not going to be reviewing applications. And I referred back to this document that Bo has up on the screen, because this is what Austin referred us to. And really, it's that section 2-162. But the purpose is also there in the first couple of paragraphs as well. And I think I sent this out to everybody, but if you don't have a copy, Bo has, and he can send it to you. One thing that's kind of interesting in the section 2-6163 is that all the terms shall be 3 years. And I don't know if something needs to be done about that, because I believe that's not the case anymore. If there's 1 year and 2 year, I don't know if there's any 3-year ones. So
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Ordinance 2023-04 cleans that up and introduces the 2-year term.
okay.
Can you reference it here? Please see. I mean, do they do that? Is that how the nomenclature? How would you know?
Periodically, the town's ordinances are used to update the town muni code. So this will be changed pretty quickly.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Bo, why don't we add that to our list of old business to follow, to just make sure that that has been updated. Section 2-163B. Will need to be updated, so Planning Commission can check on that and make sure it's happened. All right, I don't know if the commissioners have had a chance to read through this. But the very next point I have on my list is, no, it's not the next point. It'll be later. But anyway, I don't know if y'all want to take time to read over it. If everybody has read over it, if they have comments, questions, does this provide more clarity? Is it just provide more confusion? Happy to have a discussion about it if anyone wants to talk about it. The big thing that Austin mentioned that our job is when we met with him was the comprehensive plan. In this document, they're referring to it as the master plan, but this is heavily the responsibility of the Planning Commission. to update the comprehensive plan. And that's described here. Safety from fire and other dangers is a responsibility of the Planning Commission as well. I don't know how many of you knew that. But the big heavy lift for Planning Commission is this comprehensive plan. And in fact, it's so important for the Planning Commission that it's sent to the Board of Trustees for approval. And the Board of Trustees may alter or amend what we send, but only after the Planning Commission has had the opportunity to comment on the proposed amendments. So you can see there how very heavily the Planning Commission's view on the comprehensive plan is viewed by law here. So that will be something, as Austin mentioned to us, that should probably, it's due to be done by the end of next year. Comments, questions?
So Lamar, the current comp plan was signed in 2019. Typically, they're good for 10 years. But I do think that at the 5-year point, I think if we're not involved with the day-to-day planning on some of the minor applications, I think whoever is the next chair and the vice chair consider a 5-year update on where we're at and what needs to take place for goals for the next 5 years.
Well, that's sort of what I got from Austin in his comments, is that we're due to do it this next year, to update it. So planning commissioners looking for meaning. There's a lot here.
I'm not sure what we're doing. Are we trying to?
I think we're just looking at some of the.
I can't
Oh,
hear
okay.
whoever's talking.
It's Anne, and I have trouble hearing you too, Lamar. I'm sorry, your voice sounds fuzzy to me. So I
Okay.
wasn't quite sure.
I can hear you, Anne, really well. There was someone else who was trying to answer you, and I could not hear what they were saying.
I just, never mind.
Bottom line, to be clearer, Austin stated this, that Planning Commission is responsible for updating the comprehensive plan, and the 5-year mark is a great time to do it.
Oh,
Does that
I
make-
see what.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, Lamar, it's Anne. I also, what Rocco mentioned, I think that's a good idea. I participated in every comprehensive plan that was done, and they were all funded by the Kirkpatricks. And I think it's a really valuable community exercise. My late husband also was on the last committee, and Dick Bratton. A lot of people put in a lot of effort. Rocco was. Some people don't live here anymore. They've moved away, but it was really good.
It is, Anne, and it's not worth the paper it's printed on if it's not referred to often and used as a guide for.
Used as a guide, yes, that's all it is a guide.
And so it's important that it not be ignored. And that's why it's also important to update it when we're about halfway through.
I didn't know the Planning Commission had the
Well, this
obligation.
was a surprise to me as well when Austin mentioned it in our meeting, and
Uh-huh.
It's-
Okay.
Seems
thanks.
to me like that's our name, is the Planning Commission. It seems like we'd be responsible for updating the plan and keeping it. The thing I wonder about is all the other stuff we seem to get involved in. I can't imagine that Julia and Bo and Becky can't do most of the permits in the town, and I don't know that putting those on our agenda and then sending them to the Board of Trustees is, why can't the Board of Trustees and the staff just take care of all those permits instead of running them through here?
Well, Mike, that's actually now what's happening. At the last BOT meeting, Julia, brought a variance, I believe, that we never saw or heard anything about. So, that's exactly the code that, the land use code that we wrote. And that is what's happening. And, I think, you know, that was the intent for a lot of the commissioners. I think there's still some concern on the commission that we thought it was going to be part of the overhead with staff doing it, not realizing that Julia would be doing so much of it and we would be adding so much expense to the town's budget. So I think that's been one surprise for Planning Commission, but the concept you just described, Mike, is exactly what's happening. The commissioners have asked to at least see the addresses that she's working on, and we're still waiting to find out if we're able to find that information out. But otherwise, there's not a lot coming to us.
Well, do we have a job description?
So.
Well, that's what we're looking at on the screen
And
right
I
now.
don't see a whole lot in here about that particular aspect of our job.
Right, so it is addressed, the review of application, and it also refers to the land use code. We as staff use the land use code as a guide, and when we have questions about how it's applied, we do run those by Austin because a lot of it is new territory to us as well. Several of us have experience with other versions of land use codes, but we want to make sure that what we're applying here is what was adopted. So we do utilize that table that was a procedural table included in that land use code. And when we have questions about how should this happen, we do get those in front of Austin and request that guidance.
But that's Julia and Bo and Austin. That isn't us. So what's our role? Do we have any role at all?
So, and we'll go over this more in depth at your January 30th training and have that discussion because there's, you know, it does refer to that land use code. It sounds like this is something that we should visit in there. And that table of procedures and that review process that's included there. That's what we follow, but I think that it does warrant a little bit of discussion on that. The application in question that the Board of Trustees approved at their last meeting was actually an easement, and we did follow the process adopted in the land use code.
And Planning Commission never saw it, Mike.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're primarily a planning body, whether we just ought to meet whenever we need to update the plan rather than once a month to do something that we're really not doing. I think
Well, if
Julia
we-
and Bo and the staff are handling most of these permits and
Correct, but here's the issue. We heard tonight that we're gonna be doing a heavy lift with the zoning map, with Safe Built and the zoning ordinances. So she said that was gonna take a lot of time, so we'll see if it does, but that's part of our responsibility. And then second, updating the comprehensive plan is no easy feat. So
I realize that, but I'm trying to get at what is the real need for this committee other than planning? I think it's either make work or we're implies we're involved in it, but we're really not. So I'm wondering, why can't the BOT and the staff take care of almost everything besides the planning issues?
that's exactly what they're doing. That is how we wrote the code, and that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, so there are meetings that don't have the business items or the actionable items such as the approval of an application. There are some applications though that really do per your code require that either review and recommendation by the Planning Commission or the Planning Commission is the approval body. So we can certainly talk about meeting frequency. I would say that comprehensive plan update is really critical. Having our projects identified in a comprehensive plan not only positions us well to pursue grant funding. Many grant sources really do require that they are identified specifically in the comprehensive plan. And it really does help to make sure that the work of the town staff and the Board of Trustees is on target.
I would agree with that too. And then the other thing that we approved with the land use code especially was to speed things up for people. Simple things. Now, if it's a complicated thing, we would get involved.
And that's what's been happening since we passed
Uh-huh.
that. And Julia's been really handling a lot of that. I can't imagine that y'all will be able to meet any less than monthly if you're going to be responsible for the zoning map, the zoning ordinances, and updating the comprehensive plan. I could even imagine you might have to meet twice monthly to accomplish all that in this next year. But that's part of the new business section of the agenda, is to try to give some guidance and discussion to planning for 2024. And it sounds like whatever is not clear about the commissioner's responsibilities and tasks will hopefully be covered on January 30th when you have that training. As I hear from Becky, she feels that a lot of that's going to be covered then. Are there any other questions that you have that you want to be sure would be covered and made clearer in that training regarding your responsibilities and your tasks?
If you can't think of anything now, you can certainly feel free to email us.
So the next thing I had listed here was in new business or planning, was just to mention with Austin's visit. He said, if it sounds like Mike's really happy that we're not doing the little stuff. Some commissioners have been fine that we're not doing the little stuff, but like the visibility of what is taking place. And so I just wrote a note here to remind you that Austin said that if you decide you don't want to be an appellate body, you can certainly make a change to the land use code to make PC, the planning commission, more active if that's something you want to do. I know that when we wrote it this way, we had thought that maybe staff or even planning commission would do some of the little minor stuff so that we didn't incur more town costs with Julia. So that sort of hasn't panned out. So that's always something that planning commission can look at if there's the right circumstances where planning commission feels comfortable to take that on. The next point we've already gone over, and that's the update of the comprehensive plan. And then another task that will be coming up in 2024 that Julia and Austin mentioned to us is as we begin to use the code, there's going to be code revisions that will be recommended by Julia and legal, and that will be something that planning commission will need to be involved with. Remember when we wrote the land use code, we were told at that time that this is just the framework, this is just the beginning. And there's going to be a lot of revisions required and a lot of changes needed as we begin to use it and see where maybe it doesn't fit other ordinances in town and try to make it more consistent and that sort of thing. So that will be a third responsibility of planning commission during 2004. Comments, questions on that? And the last point, and we can just add all these to the old business list, just so we have a list to remind us of all these things, Bo. And again, just make sure they don't fall through the cracks. Last but not least, it may be least actually. As recently as this month, I heard in the budget discussion that because we don't have a town survey, there was fire mitigation that was not able to be done. So it's always going to be a thought or a question. Do we need to have a town survey so that we are able to fully get all the fire mitigation done that needs to be done? If you don't know where the property lines are, it's hard to it's hard to get variances. It's just hard to operate. So I just wanted y'all to have that name in the company who has done a lot of the surveying in this town and would be probably the best priced person if y'all ever decide to do that or wanted to get a grant to do that. And that is my list for planning for 2024. Any questions or comments on that?
Lamar, the last one you mentioned about the town survey,
Yes.
that is really good. I brought that up. And we could make that part of the comprehensive plan of something that's needed. It would help us get a grant, perhaps, like Becky said.
Well, that will
It's
be up.
expensive. Mhm.
Yeah, that'll be up to you going forward if y'all decide that's what you want to do. I just wanted to have it on the list so you'd have sort
That's a
of
good idea. Yeah.
anything that was kind of loose ends that really we had never acted on. Do we have any correspondence, Bo?
I haven't had anything come in.
Okay. Is there anything else in this sort of loose ends list that we just want to stick in old business to relook at as you go forward into 2024? Is there anything else that y'all think is missing or that you'd like to see added to it? Okay, I think we're ready to move to item 9. Rocco.
Okay, thanks, Lamar. So I wrote down some comments. I'm kind of tired. And I'm kind of sad by what happened to you. I'm sad for you. I'm sad for our town. But I have some comments I wanted to share with you and any trustees who happen to be within hearing distance. So I've been a student and a practitioner of leadership my adult and professional life. And Lamar, you're a highly successful business person and a leader, so you don't need me to tell you what leadership means or that I think highly of you as a person or as a leader. But what you may not realize is that you're a warrior. Throughout history, there's been a concept of the warrior ethos, a culture of giving of oneself embodied by the concepts of integrity, loyalty, duty, respect, courage, honor, and teamwork. And this is not a laundry list. These concepts have definite meaning and resonance among warriors. And apparent in this culture is a willingness to sacrifice for the mission and for one another. So unlike those trustees who voted against you with no explanation to our fellow citizens, those trustees who lack a grounding in the warrior ethos, you are a fellow warrior. It seemed to me, Bo was kind enough to share the video link with me from Zoom. It seemed to me that without any explanation, that the trustee meeting approving committee members devolved into a popularity contest. Lisa, did you know you had somebody not vote for you? I had somebody not vote for me. And we had 3 trustees not vote for you, Lamar, with no explanation. And so I find that inexcusable. It's not transparent. And this is not in the best part of our town. There's more, but that's enough for now. But to a fellow warrior, Lamar, I'd like to thank you for your service. There's been nothing but positive feedback from everyone who knows the work that you've accomplished on this planning commission. And now it'll be interesting to see what happens with the planning commission, not only as far as roles and responsibilities, but who's going to step into the role, who would want to step into the role when you were slighted like this. So Lamar, thank you. I hope you have a better new year, and I appreciate all your selfless service, and I consider you a warrior.
Well, thank you for your comments, Rocco. I am highly flattered to be compared to warriors such as yourself. I certainly don't put myself in that class and have never thought of myself that way. And I appreciate your sentiments and your comments. And I want to express my great appreciation to all of you there as commissioners for your work over the last few years. We've had very few absences. I think it was maybe only one time that we did not have a quorum. You have been dedicated and constant in your service to the town of Green Mountain Falls on the Planning Commission. We had so many extra meetings. We toiled in almost obscurity. No one ever came and watched our meetings. No one never really knew all the work and effort that all of you have put into it. And I think you all know that we've had moments where each and every one of us have not agreed with each other, but regardless, we have created a strong, healthy working relationship where it was safe to disagree, and yet we always found solutions for the good of the town. And that is thanks to all four of you and your attitude of selfless devotion to this town. I know that in the recent application approval process by BOT, some of you were voted against by some members of the BOT. And I know that it can be demoralizing when you've worked this hard and you're willing to continue to work this hard on behalf of the town to possibly feel unappreciated. But I want to remind you that neither of the individuals who voted against members of this commission have ever attended a PC meeting, either in person or by Zoom. They have no idea the work and sacrifice you all have made to achieve the work of the Planning Commission in this town. So it had nothing to do with your performance. And I hope that any of you who had votes against you realize that it's not about you personally, and it's not about the work that you've done. I have been at every one of these meetings, and I know your hard work and I know your dedication, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And we could not have created what we created together had everyone not really put their heart and soul into this. I'm sorry that I'm not allowed to continue to lead this committee, but I know that your good work will go forward and continue, I hope, regardless. And I want to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. And once again, thank you for your service.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless there's further comments, we can adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Lamar. Have a great holiday.
Thank you, Bo. But Bo, thank you for all your efforts and all your work as well. It's been such a pleasure working with you.
You're very kind. Thanks for putting up with me.
Oh my gosh, Bo, you're amazing. I've loved working with all of you and you as well, Bo. Thank you so much.
We'll see you around, right? You'll be around. I know you will. That'll be great.
Lisa, did you have something?
What'd you say?
No, thank you, Lamar.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.